Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. I hope you guys are having a great day. What we saw for Palantir stock and AI stocks and kind of the whole national market today in terms of the indexes was a little bit of a pullback closing Friday's trading session. And that is because a lot of investors are awaiting for key inflationary data, which will really sway the probability of the Fed cutting interest rates in the near future. We're going to be talking about what some expectations are for PLTR, possibly if this pullback continues, and some actually interesting price targets that I don't know if I necessarily agree with. However, if you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now, what we see PLTR in terms of price action, quick here, we'll check for you guys. Closing here at 23.49, down about 4% on the day. We see NVIDIA. I always like taking a look at NVIDIA right here because it is the main driver of a lot of the AI stocks right now. A lot of the other stocks are following kind of trading patterns of NVIDIA. What we see with them down, basically consolidating on the day, kind of holding some support here in the high 870s. Looking at PLTR, actually lost support here at the 23s, kind of the 24 area right here, and is right underneath that level. And this means if we see a continuation of a pullback here, and we'll get into the articles and what the analysts are really kind of justifying their kind of predictions off of, is we could possibly see a full pullback here into the 22.45, and that's because we had a kind of a critical reversal point that was triggered at this point before we hit this 52-week year-to-date high recently. And if that were to fail, then we could possibly see a pullback around the $20 range. And that's because this area right here used to be a very strong resistance for Palantir. If we just look back here in the recent trading history, back in November of last year and December, this is kind of from last quarter earnings. So that could become another level of support. Sometimes on a pullback, when we see those resistance points, they actually turn to support points after we see a stock testing that area. Now, in terms of options, we're also seeing a little bit of bearishness actually in terms of next week expectations. In terms of the $24 strike price, 12,000 of the volume, but however, 22, you see 15,000 in terms of the put volume right here. And like I said, a big catalyst, in my opinion, on why we're seeing a little bit of hesitancy here in the market is because this is the second week now that we've seen the large indexes that have actually closed in the red. You can see right here, you got Dow Jones, S&P, NASDAQ, all down about 1%. And if we specifically look at what everybody is keeping their eyes on, is investigators are weighting the impact of hot inflation reports on the Federal Reserve policy next week. However, what we've seen traditionally over the beginning of the year here, remember last year, the federal basically the investors, they priced in about 7 to 6 interest rate cuts for 2024. We have not yet seen any of those cuts, and the probability for June cuts is even starting to dwindle now after the Fed came out saying that they are not going to cut rates until they are seeing a key trend on data. And what we did see was that core CPI data actually came out hotter than expected in the last report. What we're going to be waiting for, and what I think has been interesting though, is that the market has really just been brushing these off. They really haven't been caring what the inflation reports have been coming out with. We've seen these stocks that have been continuing to rally, and especially with the S&P has continued to set all-time highs on a daily basis. So the question is, when is that breaking point going to happen, and when will we see a larger correction in the market? Right now, we're not seeing that. The momentum and the AI demand is still very strong. However, what we're seeing here from investing.com, an interesting article that talks about how much PLTR could fall soon. And we're going to be talking about what some of the analysts are saying in terms of price targets. Now, it's important to know that Palantir has had a large surge in momentum. It's already up over 42% this year, obviously outpacing the S&P 500 index, but it's much more speculative in nature in terms of more if it's an AI play. So I don't really like when, more of these spec plays that are going to be more high risk, high rewards. When we compare them to the S&P 500, that's comparing to the top 500 stocks, obviously going to be a much more less riskier investment. So obviously returns are going to be much little. I don't know if you can those aren't directly really correlated to me in my opinion. So I hate when people try to compare those kind of percentages to these market indexes. However, what we did see with PLTR, you had the Q4 amazing earnings, probably historically the best earnings for the company. And what you have had is a big push into the governmental contracts, the credibility with the recent announcement of the Titan project. And that's them getting advanced and getting involved with new technology in terms of the governmental side. So we're seeing PLTR, even though they're having great results in terms of commercial revenue, commercial customer count with their AIP bootcamp, also seeing a big push in terms of governmental contracts. Now, here are what the analysts are saying on how the stock could drop from here. One of the biggest pieces of criticism that PLTR gets, of course, is its valuation. We've talked about this many times. However, investors, the valuation is being set by what people are willing to pay for the stock right now. And what we do see, and in my opinion, is that the valuation is really just a future gauge of what the expected earnings reports are going to be. We've seen PLTR smash earnings over like the last 4 to 5 quarters now, and they've even had that 5th quarter of GAAP profitability. Considering we could still easily have S&P 500 inclusion this year, there's still a few quarterly reviews that are going to be coming out. We just had the first one. The fact that this could still happen, to me, shows a lot of momentum is still behind this stock. And even with the revenue predictions for the next fiscal year, I think PLTR is going to keep crushing earnings, and that means valuation is going to stay high. And we've seen that. Looking at valuation here, Seeking Alpha, great place to get a lot of data. I am an affiliate partner with them. Check out the affiliate link down below if you want 20% off a premium membership, because I get a lot of the data that I need to actually create the content that I do for you guys. However, you can see right here across the board, always getting an F or a D minus for valuation, but growth, profitability, momentum, always getting great grades right here. It is one of the highest valued stocks in its own SaaS type of industry for software as a sales. But what we're seeing is Phillips Security Research here. Some analysts are saying that PLTR could slip to at least 22.30. That's the area that we pinpointed right here, this key kind of reversal point right there. And if PLTR continues to go down, we could see it drop to that $20 range. That's that previous resistance point that could be tested as a level of support. This could happen. It could, but I don't know if it necessarily will. And the reason I'm justifying that, and with my opinion, is because even if it does happen, we're seeing the market, if it has these red days due to inflationary uncertainties and scares, it usually brushes that off the next day. The momentum, and right now the US economy is showing to be very strong. And PLTR is one of the top most searched for stocks on Zacks.com. Right now, in terms of their actual earnings per share and revenue growth forecast, revenue and earnings is still about 2 months away here, May 8th. However, what we are seeing is 16 earnings per share revisions in the last 90 days. So no wonder why valuation is going to be high. And I'm kind of looking at more Webush and Dan Ives, their price targets at $30, $35. Right now with the momentum, I think that's entirely possible, even if Palantir continues to deliver and exceed its expectations. What we're seeing a year over year, what they're indicating is a 17.1% increase, and for the current and the next fiscal years, indicating a 20 to a 21% change. And with the surprise history that we've seen, they've continued, like I said, to beat their earnings. So the fact is that Palantir is trading at a very high valuation, but right now it's justified with the AI demand that we've seen, and especially the explosion in NVIDIA. I mean, just look at NVIDIA. Obviously, we are in an AI boom. It just depends on when that correction is going to happen. And if the Fed their influence on changing rates, when is that actually going to have a big influence on the market? That is when I think we're going to see more of an actual, not just a pullback, but a decent correction in the market. And for people that are looking to sit here on the sidelines thinking that PLTR is way too high of a valuation right now for more of those value-oriented investors, that could possibly be great entry points for people taking a long-term perspective. Really, the valuation is dependent on what do you think the price will be in the future and what your position is going to be. Are you in here for the short term? Are you in here for the long term? And short term, it may not be possibly the best trade or entry of a position, just considered due to where PLTR is right now, where the AI stocks are right now, and where the S&P is at right now, at all-time highs and even 52-week year-to-date highs for PLTR. But however, if you think PLTR is worth 50 to 60 bucks here in the next decade, and even beyond that, possibly over 100, then this price could look relatively cheap to you. So it's always important, of course, to do your own due diligence out there and make sure you you know, kind of do your own research and create your own opinions, because these analysts, they're going to throw all these different numbers at you. You're going to see, depending on the hype and the trendiness that's happening within the market, things can really sway your opinion. So it's really important to take a look, do some in-depth research on these articles, on these stocks, and on these industries, really learning the ins and outs of them. But right now, PLTR, I don't know if those long-term price targets at the 2230, I think in 2030, those are the short-term price targets. If there was going to be a pullback, in my opinion, I agree more with more of the bullish perspective right now with the momentum that PLTR has. It's still one of the biggest trending stocks, possibly going to the 30s here. That could be happening in 2024. So lots of information out there. What do you think down in the discussion? I want to know what your comments are, what your thoughts are, and I'll respond to them. Peace out. Take care, and I'll catch you guys later.